You may be wondering, what exactly is forensic science? Well, today we are going to delve further into exactly that.
It's just before 2 a.m. and two armed men crash through a door. This could be a scene from your favorite primetime TV drama. But it's not. It's real-life crime. While the men are breaking in, the victim barricades himself inside a bedroom in a suburban Vancouver home, then escapes out a window. Police arrive, and the men are still inside. They make a break for it, but police and dog teams take them down.
What exactly is forensic science?
Forensic science is a scientific method of gathering and examining information about the past, which is then used in the court of law. These sciences are used around the world to resolve civil disputes, to justly enforce criminal laws and government regulations, and to protect public health. The 1800s essentially began a new era in the forensic science world. Up until this point, no significant advancements had really been made in the forensics world. This century held many developments. It was in this era that the development of tests for the presence of blood in a forensic context was invented. It was also in this time period that we saw the first use of ballistic comparing, by using a bullet comparison to catch a murderer. In 1836, chemical testing was utilized, which ultimately led to the first use of toxicology. In 1854, the first use of photography for the identification of criminals and documentation of evidence and crime scenes was recorded. Making yet another huge leap in forensics, in the year 1880, fingerprints were found to be unique, which then led to the first recorded use of fingerprints to solve a crime in 1892. In 1888, one of the most notorious serial killers still well known today, Jack the Ripper's case, used a significant amount of forensic science when examining the victims. Also, only shortly after this time, in around 1895, forensic psychology began to become established. In the 1900s, almost every year meant a new advancement in forensics. The establishment of popular practice of using the comparison microscope for build comparison occurred in the 1920s. In 1931, development of the absorption-inhibition ABO blood typing technique, which is a method to tell what specific type of blood you have, was put into use. In 1935, the development of using chemiluminescent reagent luminol as a presumptive test for blood was introduced. Luminol chemiluminescence is, in simpler terms, a reaction that is used by criminalists to detect traces of blood at crime scenes, and it makes the blood glow blue. The study of voice print identification also began in the 1920s. It was first used to solve crime in 1967. With 1984 came the introduction of the use of DNA in forensics, and it continued to advance when finally, in 1987, DNA identification was used to catch a criminal.
Advancements in forensics are still being made to this day as new technologies are being developed. Just in the last 15 years alone, amazing feats have been made in bettering forensic. In 2007, a footwear detection system was introduced. In 2008, detection of fingerprints, even after a surface has been cleaned, was discovered. 2011 also held a few massive forensic developments, such as comparing sketches to photographs and creating systems that can find dental match in roughly 4 seconds. DNA identification is now considered the most reliable of all forensic tools. It has been in use for at least amount of time.
Now that we have shown the advancement of forensics over time, it seems most fitting now to show the technologies currently in use today. So what kinds of technology are utilized in this certain science? One of the most prevalent and reliable technologies in forensics is that of DNA testing. DNA testing, in most cases, proves with near certainty the identity of the criminal. Particles and things such as blood, saliva, semen, skin, urine, and hair are used for evidence, but urine stains and vomit are generally not accepted for testing. The process of testing takes 5 steps. First of all, the sample cells are broken down into a solution. The destroyed proteins and fats are then separated through centrifugal force. The lysate is then passed through a column that gives positively charged medium to the DNA. The proteins, fats, and salts are then removed after many washes. After all of this is done, the DNA soaks in a solution again and is recovered. The best temperature for preserving DNA is a cold place, as hot temperatures degrade it. Any dry or frozen DNA, regardless of the age of the sample, is analyzed successfully through polymerase chain reaction. DNA testing is always at risk of contamination, so anyone investigating the crime should be careful in what they do. Doing things such as smoking, eating, drinking, or littering could contaminate the sensitive science. It is also crucial to the record of the chain custody. If DNA testing proves that the evidence was held by many people, the scientists need to identify all the different individuals that handled it. Results can sometimes be inconclusive because of either no results or partial ones. The reasons for this would be either they had little suitable human DNA, or the results were taken from an unknown crime scene. If the latter would happen, there would be no other known samples of an individual for comparison.
One of the other most important technologies is fingerprinting. The scientific name for it is dactyloscopy. On a fingertip, there are things called friction ridges and furrows. Every individual has a different pattern that is created by these. Not one is the same. This makes it easy to identify the criminal and prove his or her guilt. Prints from other places on the body are not accepted as proof of a crime. There are two different types of crime scene prints: visible prints and latent prints. Visible prints are made on a surface that will leave an impression such as dirt, blood, or clay. Latent prints are not easily seen. They are found on surfaces such as weapons or glass from where a person touched it. Officers can lift the prints off with certain tape or take special photographs of them. There are three different types of patterns: loop, whirls, and arches. The loop make up 60% of the population's fingerprints, and the pattern recurves back and forth from each other. Whirls make up about 30% of all fingerprints, and some say the form looks like small whirlpools. Arches make up only 5% and create a wave-like pattern. Investigators look for fingerprints on nearly every surface, as they can be found on anything. Certain lights help with the finding of the prints. Fluorescent lights make latent prints able to be found, and various alternate lights can help with the appearance of a visible print. There are also other methods that can be performed to collect the fingerprints. Investigators can perform things such as cyanoacrylate, which is the fuming on a surface before applying dyes to developers, which reveal latent fingerprints. Accutrans, which fill up the nooks of the print with a black liquid, and many more.
Now that we have gone over some of the main technologies in forensics, we should talk about the accuracy of the science. How accurate really is forensic science?
Well, I would have to say, with the exception of DNA testing, no method has been able to consistently and accurately link a piece of evidence to only one single source. The only way DNA can be incorrect is if the samples are damaged or contaminated by improper handling. The weak points of fingerprinting are the fact that matching and interpreting the prints can be subjective between examiners. The results can often be inconclusive or incorrect because of human error. A few of the other technologies that investigators use are handwriting, polygraph, and hairs and fibers. However, none of these are very accurate. Handwriting is a rather inconsistent thing and can even vary in that of a single individual, so determining whether a comparison represents two different people can be unreliable. Body changes registered by the polygraph equipment can be subjective to interpret, caused by anxiety rather than guilt. Lastly, hair and fiber cannot be identified to one source. Hair comparisons must be confirmed by mitochondrial DNA analysis. With all this being said, forensic science is extremely helpful in concluding a crime. In most instances, one or more of the technologies have been used to successfully point to the perpetrator. Without these ways of solving crime, it would be nearly impossible to prove who committed the crime and do justice.
Hopefully by this point you are no longer in the dark as to what forensic science truly is and the different tools used in it. But in saying this simply, forensic science fails to shed light on the many fields that actually make it up.
So what really are the fields that go along with this broad science?
If I had to guess, one of the first things you think about when forensic comes to mind is determining cause of death. This, in reality, only truly makes up a part of the field of forensics called forensic pathology. Forensic pathologists specialize in examining the bodies of people who died suddenly, violently, or unexpectedly. They are responsible for determining the cause and manner of death. Also, this is the legal concerning field of pathology that determines the causation and consequences of wounds and injuries. You may have heard the term medical examiner or coroner
before, and these are the two main professions associated with forensic pathology. These are the people who perform the forensic autopsies, or simply autopsy for short. Forensic autopsies have legal implications and are to determine if the death was accidental, homicide, suicide, or a natural occurrence. These are the types of autopsies that do not require consent from the next of kin to provide in determining the cause of death. Another field associated with this science is forensic psychology. This is essentially where the field of psychology meets the law. One of the most prevalent careers associated with this is that of a criminal profiler. This field helps in assessing the mental health associated with the individuals who have been charged with the crime. Criminal profiling is the act of developing a psychological profile of an offender based off the crime scene. Profiling is used to help investigators catch psychopaths and serial killers that would otherwise go free. Now, another field you all may be rather familiar with is crime scene investigation, or in other terms, CSI. This is, if not obvious by its title, all about documenting the scene of a crime. It is the job of a crime scene investigator to carefully comb the crime scene looking for hair fibers, blood, etc. Crime investigators are usually police officers with little to no scientific training.
Now you may be wondering, how much more is there really to learn? Well, have you ever seen any of the popular television shows depicting any of these aspects of forensics? A few of the popular ones are CSI, NCIS, and Criminal Minds. Well, it seems those shows portray forensics in a rather flawed way, and I think it's best to shed some light on this situation.
Forget the fast-paced glamour dreamed up on TV.
Is this a sexy job? Because on TV it's very sexy.
No. I would say it's not very sexy.
Okay, so there's one here, more there, and then more there.
We don't drive around fancy cars. We don't have fingerprints pop up on screens and flash match, or anything like that either.
Is science portrayed on television accurate?
Shows depicting forensics have a lot of inaccuracies. Most of the time they show science beyond what normally occurs, or they make science do things that in reality it cannot, such as that its own blood cannot fluoresce under ultraviolet light, but it can if first sprayed with a chemical. They often over-embellish things and portray them in a way that they definitely are not. Another thing that inaccuracies have impacted is people's views of forensic science that has created something that could potentially be very bad. Television shows portraying forensic science or crime scene investigation are extremely popular, and their impact can clearly be seen in what professionals call the CSI effect. The CSI effect is basically perception of the near dependability of forensic science in response to the TV show. The main distortion between fictional portrayals and the real thing is the time frame. Most often it can take several times or even months to get results back from the lab. As opposed to the fictional depictions, the results come back almost instantaneously.
This effect is most visible in courtrooms, specifically among the jurors. They often ask why everything isn't subject to forensic analysis, because in reality everything does not need to be.
Also, the media's depiction shows that science has been completely accurate, which often leaves the jurors forgetting to think about human technical error.
After saying all this, how can it be that forensics has any direct correlation with our relationship with God? How does the science connect to our faith?
I think that forensic science can have a lot to relate with our faith. Through forensic science, we can all see how amazing God is in all of His creation. We all have different fingerprints that identify who we are. None are alike. Every single one is unique. This shows how God is our intelligent designer. He handcrafted us in a way that sets us apart from everyone else. Out of billions of people in the world, no two will ever be quite the same. Also, our heavily coded DNA, with billions of different possible letter combinations, is never completely alike from others. And through forensics, God has helped us use this amazing thing to catch and convict several people. Something that God shows us through forensics is that He is a just God and will not let guilty go free. They are not meant to, and God did not intend for us to murder and to hurt others. But being that we live in a rather fallen world, God gave us forensic science as a tool to further help make sure the guilty are rightfully punished. People who work in the field of forensics helped us to catch those people so that they can be put to justice as God would have them. I think it is truly fascinating, all of this. Forensics only proves to us that there is a God and how he is truly omnipresent in every field and in every detail.
I got that.
I didn't get that.
Power Rangers, go! Okay. How does the science connect to our faith?